Okay, so here we are. We're going to talk about the top 10 gardening tips for our casual gardeners in the Pacific Northwest where I live, and down in Alabama where Caroline lives. And hopefully this will offer some good benefit for a range of gardeners who might have just started gardening this year. Today is July the 14th of 2020. So, need I say more? The first tip I want to give you is to mulch, mulch, and please mulch. There is absolutely the best benefit from any type of organic mulch to your garden, whether you live in the South or you live up here in the Pacific Northwest. Most mulches, from pine bark to hardwood bark to pine needle to pine straw, all help suppress weeds. They help retain moisture, and then as they break down, they add, a lot of really good organic particles to the soil. I will say that if you are using a pine bark, you might want to keep in mind that that can raise the pH of your soil, and you may need to kind of balance that. And that sort of sends me off into tip number 2, and that is to have soil tested or use a test kit. That can be done through your local co-op, and I know that it would be easy to find the information that you need to have that done or to do it yourself on Google. If you just type in your zip code, and I'll try to link down below, if there's any kind of specifics about that, but I'm pretty sure if you just type in, where can I, how can I test my soil, and then just type in your zip code or put in your city and your state, it will take you to a plethora of resources for getting your soil tested. All right. So the other tip I want to talk about is when you're working in your garden, which I hope everybody is, and I hope everybody is able to, and that's going to bring me to another section at the end. I need to make myself a note about that. Make sure that your gardening implements, your tools, your pruners, your shears, your loppers, all the things that are going to be cutting at your plants are sharp and in good condition. If you're using dull or damaged blades, that can harm the plant. It most certainly will harm the plant. But it also kind of makes it less fun, less enjoyable if you're out there trying, to prune or cut or snip or do any of the things that need to be done to the plants, and your tools are so dull that you can't do it. That just saps all the fun right out. So make sure that your tools are sharp. And also, on that note, they also need to be cleaned on a regular basis. If you've got a plant that has, let's just say you're dealing with your azaleas, and I know that right now in Alabama, this is so unlikely that it's ludicrous for me to even mention it. But out here where I live in the Pacific Northwest, I literally am still dealing with azalea leaf gall. And if I cut those branches off with my pruning tool, and then I go to do something else and I touch that particular plant, I literally can transfer that fungus to another plant. or to another azalea. So as long as you know those wipes that you can buy, the pop-up cleaning wipes, they're great to have out in your with your gardening supplies. You can wipe off your tools. You can make sure that everything stays nice and clean. Another thing you can do is just have a small bucket with a little bit of bleach in a you know, about a cap full of bleach with some water in there, and just swish the blades off and then dry them. You don't want to put them away wet. So keep tools sharp and clean. It's very important that you do that. Okay, and then we're going to move on to, in the South, down, we're just going to specifically talk about in Alabama, mowing this time of year may or may not be an issue. Some lawns might be, irrigated, where they're getting a lot of water on a regular and consistent basis, and therefore they don't just go dormant due to the high heat. But it seems like when I lived down there, I kind of remember that in July, there's not a whole lot of growth. The grasses are just kind of chilling. But if you have a lawn that needs to be mowed, raise your mower blades up from the deck from 2.5 inches to 3 inches. You kind of, if you can, want to kind of create a situation where your grass is not under as much stress. So that's one way of kind of helping. If you really don't want to water that much, it's kind of difficult to justify watering a lawn when the entire thing is basically going to just chill out until probably September. You might see some greening up. I don't really remember too much about that. And if you have questions about this specific topic, drop it in the comment section below, and Caroline will be more than happy to provide an answer to those questions regarding basically all of these tips. But I know grasses and lawns can kind of be a source of concern. Okay, so mow. We're going to put mower from 2.5 to 3 inches, and regular mowing, and we don't need to raise our mower blades here, but regular mowing is very important. Okay, and then here's a fun little thing that I consider it fun because I love songbirds. I love birds in my garden. I don't grow vegetables because I don't have a yard that gets enough sun during the day to even think about growing a vegetable here. But I do have perennial and annuals. I do have shrubs. I do have a beautiful a beautiful arborvitae that provides a massive amount of shade. And I have a bird bath, and the chickadees in my yard are so adorable, and they use that bird bath all the time. So this is a two-part tip. Number one, at least once a week, refresh the water in your bird bath. Clean it out. I always just kind of tip it. It's a real heavy concrete bird bath, and if I dropped it on the ground, it would be impossible for me to pick it up. So I just kind of splash the water out. You can also use a cap off of, anything. It's small enough that you can just get your water out of the bird bath and then put fresh water in. But here's the second part of that. If your bird bath is now out in the sun due to the summer solstice, move your bird bath into a shady area. The water will get too hot, the birds won't enjoy it. So if you move it into the shade and keep that water clean, you'll have a really nice little spot for your birds in your garden. Okay, and I think I mentioned about watering in the morning. So even if you're not watering your lawn, if you do have perennials or annuals or flower pots, hanging baskets, anything that needs to be watered do that in the morning if possible. When you water in the heat of the day, it can cause a lot of problems for your plants. It's a very stressful situation. If the water is hot, if the pots are hot, the ground is hot, the water evaporates very quickly during the heat of the day. But if you water in the morning, the plants can just go ahead and draw up all the water they need before it evaporates. Okay, so if you have plans to start fall plants, whether they're fall vegetables like pumpkins or gourds, or if you want to start some mum plants, go ahead and do that in July. This is the time to do it, so prepare the beds for those pumpkins and gourds. You could even go ahead and plant some extras, like if you wanted to put in some more marigolds. I think their germination date is short enough that you'll have enough time to have a plant before first frost in either place, whether you're in Alabama or Washington State. And go ahead and spray for insects. A lot of gardens are suffering with insect pressure right now, but spray in the evening. If you're going to use an insecticide on your plants, spray those in the evening. That way all of the bees are basically done and they're less likely to come in contact with that insecticide. And go ahead and trim your perennials and do some deadheading. You might have to look, like I know with some plants, the foliage will be way tall and your flowers will be down low. And if you don't look, you won't notice that there's, something that needs to be trimmed off. But go ahead and do that. And then, I meant to say up here, go ahead and check on your irrigation system. If you have an in-ground irrigation system, just give it a quick check. Make sure it's working. Make sure that the plants that are supposed to be benefiting from this irrigation system are actually getting water. Sometimes those things can get plugged. You might have to move something. You might need to put a new emitter on. There could be just about anything going on. You could even have a blown connection where you're getting a whole bunch of water in one area and nothing, where it's supposed to be going. So go ahead and check on that and make sure that everything is working as it should. And we're going to say, I didn't write everything down. Only water in the morning. Spray insects in the afternoon or evening. Trim perennials. The last one that I was looking at. Oh, start seeds. Right. You might be able to find really good deals on those pumpkin seeds, gourd seeds. I think some of the stores have them now. Otherwise, some nurseries actually have little starts. And it's basically the same thing. So if you go and you get a pumpkin start, just make sure that you're keeping it wet, that you've got it planted in a protected area. You definitely want to mulch around it. Just kind of basic care for a plant. If you've got it put in a pot, plants that are in a pot typically need to be watered a little bit more than those that are in the ground. However, you want to make sure you're not drowning those plants. Make sure it's getting enough light. If you need to move the pot to a different area, I know on my own deck I have a situation in the summer that is so different from the fall and winter. The sun completely shifts places. So in the summer, the plants that are on the far northwest end of my deck are completely not getting sun due to the fact, even though the sun is on that side, due to the fact that the roof of the house changes and shifts. But in the early fall and winter, the sun is farther to the southwest, and that particular area is just in bright sunlight all day long. So it's one of those kind of situations where you might have hardscape that changes the shadows and the sunlight in your garden. you know, you might need to look at that and kind of draw a little map. Sometimes you can find these little books like mine that have a little garden, which I haven't done yet. I have a couple that I've drawn out in here, but like right here, I drew that. In the fall, everything will change. The light will change. The requirements for your plants will change. Watering will change. The climate will change. All of this stuff changes. The main things to keep in mind are, no matter what, you need to mulch, mulch, and please mulch. You need to make sure that your tools are sharp and clean, that you're not transferring diseases from one plant to the next. Move that mower blade up to 3 inches. Check on your irrigation system. Move the bird bath to the shade and keep it cleaned out. The birds in this time of year are going to use that way more than you realize. They're looking for sources of water. They're looking for a way to stay clean. They need to cool off. You might see birds just kind of lounging in the grass in your yard. That's another way that they cool off. They'll spread their little wings out. You want to do the morning watering routine if possible. Spray for insects in the evening. Trim your perennials, deadhead, start your seeds for fall, and consider having your soil tested or use a soil test kit yourself. If you're mulching like you ought to be to suppress those weeds, keep everything nice and moist, by fall you may seriously have, you know, a complete shift in the pH of your soil. So it's always a good idea to keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, so I'm going to try to go outside. I wanted to show you, I have a couple things outside to look at. I've got, because it has been, today I think the temperature is, what is it, right now at 11, it's 63 degrees in the Pacific Northwest, 63 degrees. So I still have pansies. A lot of people still have sweet pea flowers. And I'm not willing to just get rid of them. So I'm going, even though pansies are an annual, I'm going to go ahead and trim them to kind of maybe force another another bloom. And we're going to see if that works. I've been fertilizing, I've been watering, and they've done exceptionally well. They don't look tired, they're just really leggy and kind of scraggly, and I kind of want to straighten that up and just trim off the bottom edges of those plants, and we're going to see how they do. I've never really had that opportunity before because usually by now it's warm enough that pansies are pretty much done. So off we go. Okay guys, so as you can see, there's the pansy. It's definitely way past the point where I would want it to be. We're being visited by a hummingbird. So I'm going to give it a haircut, because right up here, this is where the plant starts, right here. So this down here just needs to be clipped off. Let's see, I need a place to put these. Okay, so as you can see, it's gotten its little haircut. I think it's going to probably do really well. There's a lot of good strong branches in here. I've got a begonia that I put in here that, as you probably know, they're shade lovers, and this one is no exception. But it's a pretty color, and I kind of hate to get rid of that beautiful blue purple, yellow. And I think if I can keep it in the shade, keep it nice and cool, I should be able to get at least, another couple weeks. So thank you again for watching. Don't forget, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Caroline and I will be happy to help you out. I'm kind of giving you a little quick tour here. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you.